Oh yeah. All rise for the dishonorable Judge Blanco.
Thank you, Bailiff Poppy Blanco. I think you're rising a little too much right now, so everybody please be seated. Thank you.
I object to that fucking rising weapon in the courtroom.
Holster your weapon, Mr. Bailiff. Please. If you've been following my channel for a little while, you've probably heard me say your enemies' enemies aren't always your friends and vice versa. This video here is going to deal with that. Recently, it seems like you can't browse any videos on this site without being bombarded by a fuck ton of Katie Joy from Without a Crystal Ball and the lawsuit involving her and other creators on the site. It's ridiculous. It seems like everybody is putting something out related to this topic, and it's really bloody annoying. Zales touched on this in his last video, and I agree with him. It seems like people are abandoning all originality and producing this content solely for the hype and the views they can get from it. Now, I've mentioned plenty of times already that I'm not interested in tackling this topic at all because I don't know much about it, nor do I care enough about it to research it. What else can I say about it that hasn't already been said by everybody and their grandmother? Well, actually, I did come across something. And can you blame me? Like I said, you can't sling around a dead cat on YouTube or Twitter without hitting hundreds of Katie Joy posts. And I actually found something related to it that I want to talk about. So why did I bring up the phrase, the enemy's enemies aren't always your friends? You see, Katie Joy, being the polarizing character she is for whatever reason, has a very dedicated community of haters. Again, I have no idea really why, and I really don't care. Her content isn't in my wheelhouse, and I don't think it ever will be. But this dedicated community of Katie Joy's detractors is so dedicated, they tend to align themselves, or at least follow, almost anybody else that criticizes Without a Crystal Ball. This isn't always the best idea, because sometimes they'll find that a creator hating on Katie Joy can be just as bad, or even worse, than they consider her to be. Case in point, the Beast Boy situation. Many people have reached out to me and told me they essentially began following him because of his frequent uploads criticizing her and her channel. That is until they saw what a piece of shit he really is. Regardless, it's safe to say a majority of Katie Joy's detractors will still gravitate to other individuals at odds with her. And what better person for this community to consider an ally than the attorney claiming to be building a case against her for her alleged transgressions, such as doxing other creators on the platform. Essentially, this man should represent the justice all of her detractors have been seeking for quite some time, especially when he takes to Twitter, offering them an opportunity to share their stories with him and provide their own receipts. That is exactly what I came across recently with an attorney by the name of Michael Saltz Esq. Mr. Saltz is an attorney based out of a private sector in Los Angeles, California, where he is a partner in the law firm Jacobson, Russell, Saltz, Nassim, and Delator, a limited liability partnership. He specializes in business litigation, real estate litigation, entertainment litigation, complex litigation, and consumer credit reporting matters. He's had a Twitter presence since October of 2019, and according to his posts, has represented some really high-profile clients. If I'm going to be completely honest, based on the way he tweets, this guy likes to suck his own dick just as much as Marilyn Manson was rumored to back in the day. He might even be missing a couple ribs, allegedly. Obviously that's a joke, euphemism, hyperbolic, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, sorry y'all. I gotta be careful cause I'm talking about a lawyer now and I don't need him suing me for everything I own. A chicken coop and a Yorkie.
Nico is mine.
Anyway, there's nothing wrong with that. Law school is no easy thing to get through, and to be a successful attorney partnered in a firm that represents the likes of Candy Spelling is well worth a little cockiness. Mr. Saltz has been doing his thing for a while now, and he has now tackled the very interesting task of litigating a case where he has taken to the internet and Twitter to compile his evidence, as he now has found are called receipts, in the T community. That's what initially called my attention. As bizarre as this all is, it kinda is a little unprecedented in the way it's all unfolding. I mean the doxing, the media that's been deleted, the alleged alt accounts, the gray area involving sites like YouTube and Twitter, and where you draw the line between TOS and constitutional rights like freedom of speech, etc., etc. All this could really affect us all, consumers and creators on the internet. So I decided to look into Mr. Saltz's career, his involvement with the Katie Joy case, and his Twitter history, and let's just say, him being kind of a dick wasn't the only thing that raised an eyebrow in my opinion. As I mentioned earlier, Mr. Saltz has worked on some pretty interesting cases for well-known clients, and he's made it known by stroking himself via his Twitter account. His ego became apparent by the way he would react to individuals criticizing him, in particular a Twitter user that questioned the validity of who he's claiming to be with his Twitter account. In my opinion, this guy would totally get off on suing the dog shit out of Blanco. I mean literally, if this guy could, he would probably sue me so hard I would have to give him everything, including my dog's shit. Allegedly. It's all jokes, damn it. Motherfucker, I'm broke. You don't want me. When things started to startle me was when I scrolled way down and saw Mr. Saltz has been criticized in the past for two other particular controversial incidents. I'm going to begin with a case involving California Lutheran University and alleged incidents of racism. When you scroll through Mr. Saltz's tweet history and get to about March of 2020, you see various tweets regarding CLU and what I understand a specific event regarding the university's softball team, the Regals, and an instance of blackface, as well as a social media post by a non-POC using a racial slur usually directed at African Americans. In this particular instance, Mr. Saltz represented all 24 of the players on the softball team, as well as 3 of their coaches that had been placed on administrative leave as a result of the alleged blackface incident. Now, while the internet has since been scrubbed of all the images of the CLU softball team allegedly in blackface, as well as the snap of the racial slur, the university's reaction to the incident, as well as some replies to Mr. Saltz's tweets, indicate an underlying issue regarding racism at the university. At the same time, Mr. Saltz insists his clients are not guilty of any of the accusations, and the blackface was misconstrued because the individuals in question were only wearing makeup representing facial hair and not the color of their skin. Mr. Saltz goes on to say that one of his clients, a coach from the softball team that was put on leave, is a woman of color and would have obviously stepped in and said something if she witnessed anything resembling blackface. Regardless, it has been reported that the members of the softball team that have been accused of blackface were dressed up as people of color. Therefore, reports indicate that it's understandable to consider it blackface and inappropriate. Mr. Saltz is adamant his clients are innocent of any allegations made against them, and I have not been able to find any documents indicating the resolution of this case. In my opinion, based on all the documents I've reviewed involving the issue of racism at CLU, Mr. Saltz may be representing and standing up for some deplorable shit.
Allegedly.
Another controversial incident involving Mr. Saltz that I have uncovered solely by looking through his Twitter history, the social media platform he is using extensively now, is one where Mr. Saltz could possibly be viewed as insensitive to the homeless population near him. A Twitter user by the name of Michael Saltz criticizes Mr. Saltz for writing a letter to LA Mag on behalf of his client Fern Peskin White regarding an article that alleges they run a supposed anti-homeless vigilante Facebook group. In the letter, Mr. Saltz demands an apology for his client. But the interesting thing is not that Mr. Saltz represents this person. What is interesting is that Mr. Kohlhaas reveals that as recently as 2018, Mr. Saltz was an active member of the aforementioned anti-homeless vigilante Facebook group, and Mr. Kohlhaas has the receipts. Mr. Kohlhaas goes on to expose various comments that Mr. Saltz made in the Facebook group that honestly really paint Mr. Saltz as pretty fucking insensitive when it comes to the homeless population. For example, Mr. Saltz has no problem with the homeless being arrested, and if not, they can be taken out of the neighborhood and dropped off against their will somewhere downtown. You know, downtown. Away from him. So they're not his problem and out of his hair with the rest of the undesirables. Allegedly, in my interpretation of Mr. Saltz's opinion, even though those are his words in black and white. Allegedly? I don't even know if that's how that works. Whatever. I ain't trying to get sued. According to Mr. Saltz, Mr. Chad attorney guy, this would open them up to a search incident to arrest that will quote unquote more than likely uncover other crimes. You know, because according to Mr. Saltz, in my interpretation, all these vagabonds probably have something on them that would link them to other crimes, i.e. drugs, weapons, his mother's phone number. I'm kidding, it's a joke. I don't believe that at all, and I don't mean for anyone to believe that. It's a joke. I'm just a comedian of color who once was homeless and also studied law. But hey, Mr. Saltz has every right to feel the way he does, just like I have every right to feel the way I do. And every right to say whatever the fuck I want under the First Amendment. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, Mr. Saltz. Mr. Bath Saltz. Allegedly, I'm fucking around. Joking. Ha ha ha. Ooh woo. Mr. Saltz goes on to acknowledge that then the homeless could also be cited, which could then lead to them not appearing in court, because allegedly those homeless horrible people don't go to court, according to him. Allegedly. Whatever. So I digress. Which would then warrant their arrest for a failure to appear, so they can then be incarcerated. Yup. That's what he commented in that Facebook group. Rather than assist them with resources such as a shelter, it appears that Mrs. Saltz would prefer they be incarcerated because our criminal justice system has been so successful up until now, right? And remember, this is an attorney seeking justice and doing the right thing. Allegedly. Finally, Mr. Saltz makes a very interesting comment in that he believes if law enforcement doesn't handle the homeless population accordingly, then it's likely that the public would take their problem into their own hands by means of vigilante groups. Just take a second to let that sink in and interpret it as you will. But Mr. Saltz apparently has a feeling the public will be so fed up that the only other option would be vigilantism. Not reform, not altruism. It seems Mr. Saltz believes vigilantism is the next step when it comes to the homeless population. Listen, I'm not going to say what I want to say, because if I did, this motherfucker would find a reason to either sue me, or more than likely, have me locked up. I'm being hyperbolic for entertainment purposes, LOL. I'll leave the rest up to you guys to investigate on your own because, as you can see, things like this could tend to be a slippery slope. Again, I'm not saying I'm picking a side when it comes to the whole lawsuit part of all this, because I really don't know enough about it to convey my opinion. As I have tried to share with everyone as much as possible, I believe it is very important to be as informed as possible, and when it comes to serious issues that can affect as many people as a situation like this, I find it imperative that we are all as informed as we possibly could be. I implore you all to do your own homework and have pride in the arguments you make, the individuals you align yourself with, and the ideals you represent. For all the Katie Joy detractors out there, don't just team up with people because they dislike the same people that you dislike, because they could very well be worse people than you could ever imagine. Matter of fact, that goes for everybody, not just Katie Joy haters. Remember, your enemies' enemies aren't always your friends, and your friends' enemies aren't always your enemies. Stay informed, stay true to you. Don't take everything at face value, especially people. Human beings are way more complex than that, and we can't always judge that book by its cover. Unless there's some really nice titties on that cover. But in all honesty, I just wanted to give my take on something I picked up on as a result of the Katie Joy avalanche of content, and hopefully I touched on something you guys haven't heard yet. I'm just here to present my findings and leave it up to you guys to decide how you feel about it all. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't ever be afraid to go against the grain. It's so important for our future, especially the way things have been. When it comes to Mr. Saltz, I really don't know what he's about. I'm just pointing out the things that stick out to me, aside from some other bizarre shit on his Twitter. This guy has some really weird tweets. Like this reply to a tweet from Donald Trump to Michelle Obama. It almost looks like he's replying as if Trump messaged him, but I don't know why. Trump never mentioned Mr. Saltz, nor do I understand why Mrs. Saltz feels the need to mention that he doesn't have a husband that's part of his reply. It's just really fucking weird to me. Or just this random tweet flipping off Nick Cannon for some reason. There's a couple in there, and I urge you all to check out his Twitter. It's kind of a good time. Also, I find this reply about clout chasing really funny. Whether Mrs. Saltz doesn't get what clout chasing is or I miss the point, I find it really ironic that Mrs. Saltz tweets positively about clout chasing like it's some sort of virtue, because essentially everything he's doing on Twitter, from name dropping big clients and stroking his ego to this hole without a crystal ball shit, I mean, isn't that all kind of clout chasing? Right? I don't know, whatever. Maybe he should look up lolcow, because he's getting kind of milky.
Back to the pasture for you. Got milk? Also something to think about. The loudest voices in the argument aren't always on the right side of the cause. Or in this case, the person with the most money or subscribers just might not be the perfect person they present themselves as. What I'm saying is, most of the time when a richer or more popular person is in some sort of conflict with someone who has a lot less money or popularity than them, the more popular person usually comes out on top, regardless of if they're right or not. In this case, we're talking about Katie Joy versus some much bigger YouTubers than her, like TATI Westbrook. I can't be fucked to look too much into this case because I am not beat, so I'm not picking a side, but if you just think about it, TATI has a lot of influence. She can probably get any fucking lawyer she wants to represent her, and this is the guy that's representing this part of the case. I'm not saying outright that he's a bad guy, but when optics are concerned, there are some pretty controversial issues in his past that really don't do this dude any justice. So if TATI is willing to work with a guy that is allegedly a person of lesser moral turpitude than, say, someone who hasn't been part of an anti-homeless Facebook group or hasn't represented alleged racists, then what does that say about TATI herself? Believe nothing of what you hear and half of what you see. Probably even less when it comes to internet bullshit. Be proud of your own ideals and how you uphold them. Unless you're happy to join the ever-growing flock of sheeple, in which case, bah to you, bish. Bah.
That's right. The only group you should blindly follow is the group that subscribes and follows the Vic Blanco and Schmenna.
Yeah, subscribe.
Just kidding. Allegedly. No, but for real, if you agree with us, then share the video, or at least share the ideas. If you don't, then more power to you. I've been wrong before, and If you want to leave a comment and tell me why I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, then I promise I'll read it. I can't promise that if you say something stupid, that I won't make fun of you. But isn't that what's beautiful about having your own opinion and being able to express it? Everyone can do it, and everyone should. Now go and tell your friends how fucking amazing I am. Go. I see the world through foggy windshields. Who the fuck's gonna love me still? That's the bitch in 6-inch strip heels. Supermodel at the bottom of this bottle. Shit, she means everything she says. As far as I know, as far as I care, this current affair ain't current affair. My girls at the top of the stairs will talk as soon as I'm there. Conversation rules a nation, I can tell, but I can never right my wrongs. Dice, I write them down for real, it's fucked up. You can get it, you can